Good evening, everyone. Today is December 10th, 2024. The time is 5:30. Let's get this meeting underway. Miss Dottie, would you please conduct a roll call to ascertain a quorum?
Yes, sir. Chair Patrick Molina,
Here.
Vice Chair Martha Barrera,
Here.
Member Heather Anderson,
Here.
and Secretary Dottie McKinney.
Helps if I unmute. And Mr. Hamilton hopefully will be joining us here in just a little bit. In the gallery, we have Becky O'Dean, Esmeralda Valdez, and Lisa Hughes. At this time, if anybody else joins, we'll make sure that we capture those folks. And let us do the pledge. Here's the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is so hard not to say play ball after that as an umpire. Very good. Item number 2, public comment. If there's anybody in our attendees who wishes to speak about anything on the agenda, please make yourself known and you'll be promoted to the panel. And make sure we give everybody enough time. I will accept silence as no public comment. So thank you very much. Item number 3, approval of the current agenda. Hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to look at that. So allow me to make a motion to approve this evening's agenda as posted on the Explore Academy website. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Heather. Folks, we are not going to do any financial committee reports tonight. It is customary that we sort of axiom a little bit of a breather at the end of the calendar year, as most of their folks have taken PTO and whatnot. And we've done this about every year since I've been on. We will have a longer financial report next month because we'll be looking at November and December in January. So, but it doesn't last a whole lot longer than a normal report. We just see 2 of everything instead of 1. That's probably the biggest change to this evening's agenda from previous meetings' agenda. Learning celebration. So I've looked at it. It looks great to me. Any other questions, comments, concerns from the board with regards to this evening's agenda? All right, then discussion is closed. Ms. Dottie, would you please perform a roll call vote to approve this evening's agenda dated December 10th, 2024?
Yes. Chair Patrick Molina,
Aye.
Vice Chair Martha Barrera,
Aye.
Heather Anderson,
Aye.
and Dottie McKinney. Aye.
Thank you all very much. We'll move right into section 4 of approval of the last meeting minutes. I will have to abstain, and I'll explain that in just a moment. I move to approve the meeting minutes from the November 12th, 2024 Governing Council meeting. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Martha. I need to abstain because I wasn't here, so I have read the minutes, but I can't validate them as being correct or complete. So I will abstain from a vote, but I will certainly host any other discussion. Did anybody find any errors, typographical misspellings? Did we get Martha's name right? Because I either got Martha or John's name wrong every time I was the secretary. Every time. I'd get it right, except in one spot. Every time. So any changes or omissions, errors? No? Very good. Then, Ms. Dottie, would you please conduct a roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes from the Governing Council meeting dated November 12th, 2024?
Yes, sir. Chair Patrick Molina,
Abstaining.
Vice Chair Martha Barrera,
Aye.
Heather Anderson,
Aye.
Dottie McKinney. Aye.
All right. Meeting minutes are approved. They are no longer a draft. All right. Item number 5 is just a placeholder for financial committee reports. We are skipping that this month, as mentioned earlier, to give our business manager and her crew a little bit of time to recover at the end of the year, enjoy their family and friends. So next month in January, we will be reviewing the November and December financials. right into my absolute favorite part of this meeting. And one of the biggest reasons I love this job is the learning celebration. So, Miss Karen, if you would please bring into the panel the folks who are presenting, and I'm going to sit back, mute, and enjoy.
So Jake, I assume I'll start with Dr. Valdez and then Miss Odine, and are you going to introduce them or how does, yes? Dr.
You need to
Valdez
mute, brother.
Yeah, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
and Miss,
I will sort of introduce the context and then I will let Dr. Valdez introduce her staff member who can then introduce the topic for this evening. So as you all know, and this will come up later in my head admin report, we have hit our bar on asynchronous days. And something that has come up was the topic of how do we handle asynchronous learning at the different grade levels. Well, I had the pleasure of being able to be on the K-5 campus on Dr. Valdez's campus and was able to walk into the kinder class, and Miss Odine said, "Do you want to see what we do for asynchronous learning?" So I got excited. I checked it out. I thought it was super cool. I invited the kinder team to join us this evening to be able to talk about that. And then you will notice that directly under it, you'll see a mid-high for next month. At the time that I put the request in, and I will overtly apologize because Ms. Werner got the agenda to me on time, and I did not open it up to look because I had asked her if there would be enough time to do a mid-high and a K-5. So I didn't know what the agenda was going to look like. And she, of course, swiftly did what she was required to do. And then I failed to do what I was required to do, which was look at it. So this evening, we get the K response for this. And then next month, we'll take a look at some mid-high learning celebrations. But with no further ado, I will let Dr. Valdez introduce her staff and just say hi to everybody.
Good evening, Board of Directors. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Colander. Yes, so we have our Miss Odine, who is one of our AB kindergarten teachers, and her team, who includes Miss Vargas, Miss Davis, Miss Noel Eisenberg, and Miss Nakoti, have all put together a presentation, and they're going to just share some of the highlights and exciting things that are happening at the AB level so far this year. So if we can let Miss Odine in, and I believe they have a presentation they're going to share as well.
Well, welcome, Miss Odine.
Miss Odine's here, and you can share your screen if you'd like to, or you just tell me what you need.
Yes, I am working on sharing my screen.
So at the bottom of the screen, there's a green. Yeah, you got it. Okay.
Yeah. So we taught online for a while, if you don't recall.
I just didn't know if some people are familiar with Google, but not Zoom or
Oh,
whatever. So.
yes. Well, hello, everybody. I think.
Hello. I have to ask about the picture. What year was that picture taken?
Last year.
Right on. but you look like you're 16 in that picture.
Oh,
seriously.
No, thank you. The Botox is Botoxing. This year you'll know because I have my little flower headband in and a hungry caterpillar shirt to go with it. So
of course, you're a kindergarten teacher.
All right. So Jake was in our classrooms recently, right as we were coming back from Thanksgiving break. And we just got a chance to chat a little bit about asynchronous learning. And we sometimes have them planned and we sometimes have them unplanned, and everyone still wants to know what could that possibly look like in kindergarten. So I'm here to just show that with you guys a little bit today. Yeah, we've had 3 asynchronous days so far this year, 2 in that Thanksgiving break week that were planned, and 1 snow day, which was unplanned. So no matter if it's planned or unplanned, the kindergarten team clearly expresses through the Remind app, or through email, this is coming up, this is what it's gonna look like. Please don't panic, kindergarten families. We don't, want you to be really worried about this. It's going to be okay. So we send off messages and we send off direct links. We know that as a school, Explore uses Google Classroom quite a bit, and that's such a lovely, lovely tool for older children who are really independent and able to log in and use Google Classroom. There's just not a lot of independence in kindergarten. And so rather than give those parents another thing to log into, kind of another barrier really to be able to do these activities, we send the link directly. So I've got some kind of examples of what our planned days have looked like for so far this year. So I sent off a message. This is it. This is my screenshot of it. It pretty much says, you know, we know that your kinder students aren't going to be doing anything super independently. We want this to be easy. We, you know, we want it to be activities that you can do either with or without a computer. If you have younger siblings, older siblings in the house, we want it to be able to be family activities. It's not going to be graded, and it's going to be just something that can hopefully you can have fun memories for on your days off together. And if you follow that link down here at the bottom, it'll take you to my choice board. This is the one I used for Thanksgiving. And the requirement that I asked for was 2 items on Monday and 2 items on Tuesday. A lot of my kiddos did the same things. Some of them did different things. And these are what those items looked like. So remembering that this is kindergarten and what is academic and appropriate for our kindergartners might look really different than what our high schoolers were doing. So no book reports, no research, nothing like that. But they did do the turkey run, which was really fun. I like to include some things that really get our kiddos off of technology. So things like prepare a snack or a meal, and then draw a picture of what they made and include labels. So my flavor in kindergarten is Master Chef. This is my 4th year doing Master Chef. So anytime we can include those food related, cooking related things, that's really fun. They did a directed drawing, which was draw your dessert, pumpkin pie. So if you clicked this hyperlink, it would take you to this YouTube video of a guy using shapes, straight lines, curvy lines, using a lot of that same language we use in early writing skills and strengthening those writing muscles. So it looks silly, it looks like fun, but it's actually really important learning for our 5-year-olds. Some of the other fun things we did, we had some read alouds available, and then I gave prompts to the parents or to the grownups and said, after you've read this story together, and I've got it just hyperlinked right here, discuss, is there a new food that you would like to try this week? How does trying new foods make you feel? Some of our parents really have that language and skill to be able to initiate those conversations with their kiddos, and some of them need a little bit of help and a little bit of guidance. So that's kind of what we're here for as a kindergarten team. I've also got one from Miss Crystal. Her flavor is Legos and building. So any incorporation of shapes and building and Legos. So again, choose 2 items from the list, but hers is going to be with her flavor and with those math and science standards. So put your family members in order from shortest to tallest. That measuring skill is really important. Practice counting, cut up some old magazines or newspapers, look for numbers. Any sort of thing that we can do to get them outside, looking for colorful leaves, counting the leaves that they can find on a walk. Those are all really fun things that, again, they can do as a whole family, which is kind of the goal. We've also had one so far unplanned day. And so as a kindergarten team, we have figured out a way to make that as simple and streamlined as possible. So again, we all have choice boards, but we have one that's set to be ready for a snow day so that when we get that really fun 6 a.m. phone call, all we have to do is push this out with a message that says, choose 2 things today. You know, if you're with grandma and grandpa and you maybe don't have access to a computer, that's okay. There's items on here that you don't need technology for. If you're at daycare, if you're with younger siblings, there's kind of something for everybody. So these ones are all wintry themed. This one is a wintry yoga. So if you click on this link, it'll take you to this penguin themed yoga video. I always have a lot of families who enjoy doing these together. They're 10 minutes. She does yoga in her jammies. It's really fun movement opportunity. to get everyone involved. One of the other ones I've got on here was, a directed drawing of hot chocolate. And it's that same guy who does the videos, and he uses the language that we use in the classroom. And then I get pictures of it, which is always really fun. So the families like to send me messages on Remind. The one on the left, they have a family of 4, including a toddler, and the whole family did it and had like a contest, which is just so sweet. The one on the right, she's one from last year, and she had a lot of fun at her special homework table working on those activities. And it's not required that they share those pictures with me, but I really like it. So I'm not going to say no. And then let's see, the last one I've got is from Miss Noel. So she is our only kindergarten teacher, and actually she's our only teacher in our elementary that actually keeps her morning kids and afternoon kids all day long, and she teaches all subjects. So Miss Noel's classroom is going to look the most like a traditional public school elementary classroom. We've really learned that some of our kinder kiddos are just not ready to have more than one teacher to have all of those transitions, and they really thrive a lot better just staying in one place. And it's really nice that we can offer that to those families. So Miss Noel shared kind of what her snow day asynchronous learning looked like on our most recent one in early November. So she is Keepers of the Earth is her flavor. So all about the world and learning about the world and nature and recycling and protecting Earth's resources, things like that. So she usually tries to include some sort of video that goes with what they're learning about. And this one, it's this video right here on the right. It's about a young boy who goes to school in the coldest town on Earth in Siberia, and how he gets ready to go to school every day, and he rides the bus and he wears all these layers. So she again puts in some sort of prompt. He goes to school in -49-degree weather. Be an observer using that language that she uses in her classroom. See if you can find things that are similar or different. Opens up conversations about how we can get dressed and the things we can wear. And, makes it seem like our snow days maybe not so bad after all. She also really loves a scavenger hunt. So this is one that she included most recently, where she put in the letters that we had worked on so far in our curriculum, and then said, "Hello, explorers," using that flavored language again, and kind of sent her friends out to find things in their home or in their yard that started with each of those letters. So again, really creative, finding ways that we can meet our kiddos at their level, and be really accessible for all families. Miss Noel does use Google Classroom, so this is kind of an example of what that Google Classroom option can look like on our kindergarten level, speaking to adults rather than the kiddos, because we recognize that it's the adults who are logging into Google Classroom. But yeah, that's what that looks like. I'm gonna stop sharing. There it is.
That is great. That is absolutely great. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Any questions or other comments from anybody?
I would just like to say I'd like to go back to kindergarten with you.
Please do. Please do. We love visitors. We love guest readers. Come in, come visit. I think every adult should have a day in kindergarten in adulthood. I think the world would be a better place if that could happen. Everyone needs to remember, what snack time and recess are like. Come on down.
Well,
Seriously, come next week. Miss Odine, what time is the Christmas parties at the kinder?
Oh, Thursday
you guys wanna come?
afternoon. Yes, we're
That
having
would be
a
a great
fun
time.
Christmas party. All the families are gonna come.
That's
We'll have all the activities. Santa will be there. It's a secret.
And I will say I'd like to mention that one of the things that I appreciated about what Miss Odine shared with me when I was there was that real intention which you could see in what she presented of bringing the family into it, because it wasn't just that they expected a kinder to go sit in a corner and be independently working on their own for all of the options of the activities. Families could participate as well, which I think it was great foresight in terms of they're going to have a day at home, they're going to have to be supervised. Can we get the person supervising them in on the action? So I really appreciated that aspect of the way that the kinder designed that asynchronous.
We've gotten some really good feedback, especially our families who have like soon to be kinders, maybe 3, 4-year-olds, and they like to come in then on those open house days and say, I'm ready for kindergarten because I did X, Y, and Z of all the activities. I did my homework. And that's just really sweet, builds that community, feels good to know that we're meeting the needs of our families.
Yeah, that's really super clever. And this is my paycheck for being on the board, is this right here. These spotlights are just awesome. So thank you, Miss Odine. Any other comments before we excuse Miss Odine so she can enjoy the rest of her evening?
All right. Thanks all. Have a
Thank you
great rest
so
of your
much.
meeting. Do
Thanks.
some yoga if you need a brain break. Don't forget to move your bodies.
In your pajamas.
That's right. In your
In your
pajamas. That's the
pajamas.
important part.
I was paying attention. I'd be a darn good kindergartner right now, boy.
I'm telling you, come on down anytime. All right. Bye, all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm going to send you all through cyberspace, but enjoy the rest of your evening or stay with
Or
us if you'd
stay.
like.
You bet.
Thank you, Dr. Valdez.
Yes, thank you so much. Great to see you, Dr. Valdez.
Good to see you too. Have a good night.
All right. Well,
They just left on their own.
that was great. That was absolutely great. So clever. So my wife, who is an educator, she taught 5th grade and then kindergarten for a little while, was sitting behind me watching. I invited her over to take a peek to see what's going on, and she approved. So
Nice.
the old school teacher, like she graduated from UNM in '89, like old school. So, and she's an early childhood guru person.
Is she still present for the way you announced? They said the word old right then.
Yeah,
Is she-
she's right on the court. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah, I
Well,
was going to
and
say, does she want you announcing when she graduated that?
Well, that's she graduated a
Hey, and
whole lot of years before I did.
I'm sitting here trying not to be offended because I graduated from college way before her. So
Well, we both graduated high school in '85. So, yeah. All
I
righty.
graduated high school in '98.
Yeah, the toddler. That's what I said.
I'm not saying notice. Moving on.
Moving
This is
on
not
to
on the
item
agenda.
number 7 of our agenda this evening is Mr. Jake Colander's administrative and staff report. Handing it over to you, Jake.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Molina. So in terms of the staff of the school leader report, I kind of my plan moving forward, what I talked to Karen about today, was probably the same categories are there because they do. I sometimes need to be held accountable to thinking sort of 360 around what goes on at the school because I tend to be, as a former teacher, much more like curriculum and instruction focused and not always thinking about all those moving parts. And so some of these categories will be repeating so that I make sure that I get in and speak about each of them. The staffing, as an example, is because our enrollment numbers were lower than anticipated. We've had one more teacher who submitted a resignation. I don't often know the details of the resignations. Typically, as the principal, if somebody had put a resignation letter in, I would go talk to them unless this was sort of a mutually agreed upon, like, we're not feeling them, they're not feeling us. The resignation kind of feels like it's from both sides. This teacher I have not heard any negative word about. And so I kind of have tasked the principals, like, if somebody resigns and you feel like this is a teacher that you want to go talk to, because I am a proud proponent of that, because I've rescued a couple of our really good teachers off of the precipice when they hit their moments of stress and say, I think I'm going to resign. Of just being able to talk with them one-on-one and what are your challenges and how can I help you? And sometimes that just means all the world to them. So I don't know much detail, but what it did do is give us, as you all know, we're sort of beyond our breathing room with budgetary needs. And so it was anticipated that if a few people resigned, it actually overall behooves the budget for the rest of this year to have that happen. So when this teacher resigned from his position in middle school, I sort of reached out and said, I don't think we need to have this covered elsewhere. And we do have some great returning staff. If you don't know, Ben Tavicek, who is one of our high school, or sorry, one of our middle school English teachers, is an alumni from the school. We also hired Jolene Marshall, who was one of our alumni this last year, who just graduated as an EA at our K-5 campus, because we had an EA position that needed to be filled. And so staffing wise, I think we're at a good place where we've had a few people that have sort of stepped aside, and it's created a little bit of that breathing room we've needed in terms of the budget that we were sort of anticipating coming with some potential resignations in December. So those have happened. We're not hiring really anything other than 2 EAs at this point, one of which, as I mentioned, we've already staffed. And similar with enrollment, there's been some conversation, just so you guys know what how challenging it can be for even simple decisions. We knew that budgetarily, and that it once we pass that 40th day, if there are some kids that leave, we don't necessarily replace them, because what we want to show between kind of end of year, mid to end of year, and the start of next year is growth in our school. So we don't typically replace students unless we feel like there's a real need to. And collectively, we had agreed with our director of outreach that moving forward, that we're not going to be accepting more students as the year continues. So our enrollment at this point, the application is for 2025, 2026. We are at our capacity with kids, which is why we've sort of hit the capacity, which is why we're not continuing to bring kids in. And the application anyway now is for the following school year. The challenge behind that, of course, is in the interim, in the last 2 weeks, I've received probably 4 requests, all of which seem like genuine, like, man, it's hard to say no. But similar to, like, the idea of precedent, right? When you say yes to one, you say yes to others. And I sometimes consider about the reverse of that. Saying no to one means you've got to say no to the next, no matter how great it seems. And that's equally a challenge, because we've got 4 kids that they're having a rough time in public school, and we know that can be the environment that they face in traditional district schools, and that's why they seek out our school. And we do have a very good reputation, and this is why parents are reaching out. And I unfortunately am having to say, at this point, we're at capacity. Please submit your application for next school year, and let's all hope for the best. So enrollment wise, our numbers may dip a little in January, but we're not anticipating bringing more students in response. And there's a typical, for those of you who are new to the board, Ms. Anderson, there's a typical dip in enrollment in January. It happens as kids, parents move, or they take different job opportunities, or they've just decided it's not the school. It's not significant like what we see in August as we watch the numbers fluctuate downward. But it does drop a little bit. And last year I freaked out a little bit as a principal, and I said, I think we need to bring kids in. We're only at this number. And I was coached through, this is how the budget works. You don't need to bring kids in, just wait and let them apply for next year. And let's get the growth money on the table for that. So facilities, as you all know, the ongoing challenges of the gym mean that I think, again, the projection for that is for them to be finished in June. It was August, then it was December, now it's June. So we're all just gonna, like Thelma and Louise, hold hands as we hit June, not knowing whether we're going to go off the cliff into this being not ready for August or not. I can't imagine that being the case, but it's the delays come around the settlement and sort of determining liability and who's responsible for what, and what does that mean monetarily for the school. And from last time I spoke with Mr. Bayardo, he said that that meeting will either happen, the foundation and the law group, that meeting will happen either right about now, about middle of December, or right when we get back in January. So that should wrap up what is the longest delay that's happening, because the drawings, I think, are ready to go from the construction group, and I do believe they are going out to bid for the reconstruction part of it. So I think we have to rebid for that. So AIC, of course, is going to bid for it, but there is always the chance that we will go elsewhere with that decision. Those are things that will happen later on, but I just wanted you to have that timeline. In the interim, however, we have once again had issues. This sort of ties to the asynchronous day. We had to do an asynchronous day at the mid-high. And I will ask Ms. Werner, because I asked Felicia Boatman, who did not know the answer and recommended that I ask you, Karen. So I thought this would be a good opportunity for that. Asynchronous day on one campus, but not the other, still just counts as an asynchronous day for the school. If we have one campus in session and one not, is that still one of our asynchronous days?
Is this due to an emergency like the plumbing and electricity?
It was the plumbing. Yeah, that was the issue.
So I I don't know that I have a solid answer for you, but I would say that the way I read the policy about asynchronous days, and and the reason I can't answer with a surety right now, is I have had emailed back, I think weeks ago, to the PED about clarification around the policy on asynchronous, because the way it's worded, that you only can have so many, except for these certain emergencies. So if that's the case, then our emergency sort of wipes it clean. And maybe the policy is just for planned and or testing and or snow days, right? And I'm not even sure that snow days, because the way I don't have it in front of me, I wasn't prepared to answer your
Sure.
question, Mr.
Yeah, I'm
Galander.
sorry.
So way to call me on the carpet. But
Not at all.
in summary, I think that it's not clear to me in the way the policy is read. I think it could be interpreted that when there's an emergency, it doesn't count toward those 32 hours, I think, 4 days, right?
4 days, yeah.
I had asked specifically for clarification on that, and I think my question raised some hoopla because I think it got passed around a bit and I haven't gotten an answer. So I don't have a solid answer. No wonder Felicia didn't. I think that the way I read it, and I think a lawyer would argue that the way it's worded, you are exempt from those 4 days when it's an emergency of the type you had.
And that would give us, because that was obviously, as you see, that's, we're sort of skipping over the PTO and back to facilities, and combined with that is our issue was that a year ago we were having backup in the school from a sewage line at the Galton facility, that a camera, the plumber that had come out on a Saturday ran a camera down the line, and it looked like it was an old pipe that had some collapse in it that is under the west parking lot. So had we known that was a collapsed component when we were doing the west parking lot, it could have been repaired at the time. Or maybe it was something that damaged the pipe during the build of the west parking lot. But regardless, there was water coming up from every drain that was every floor drain. And the moment when I said maybe we need to go asynchronous was when I got a call from Anthony that began with, "Now there's water coming out of the wall." And I was like, "Oh, well, water in the floor we get. Water from the walls a different thing." The plumbing company came and they went until midnight working on it and just said, "We're going to have to take a break." They came back the next morning, and that's when we said, "We can't possibly get this fixed and cleaned, and the smell out of the building with just a 2-hour delay," which is why we had initiated a 2-hour delay at the time and then went ahead and moved to an asynchronous day. As you guys know, our 2-hour delays would indicate it's for any one campus means it's delayed for both because of bus routes. But an asynchronous day for one campus does not mean we need to do an asynchronous for both. So K5 held classes, the 612 was asynchronous for a day. And I sent an email out to staff because it's super frustrating, I'm sure, for parents who need to find all of a sudden coverage, or daycare for kids or someone to watch them. It's frustrating for the teachers who feel like they're just getting their feet under them with the new term, and then we have to call a day. And I can tell you that for Anthony, the site principal, when I was in Arizona visiting that campus, the day we had to go asynchronous, and the following day he called me, and just the stress in his voice, because the second day the electricity went out. We had closed for an asynchronous day. We're back in school the following day. He calls me and says, "We've got no electricity." They were able to resolve that quickly enough that it didn't disrupt the day too much. They went in a shelter in place, which was appropriate. They spent the once it had gone for a little bit, they said, "Let's move kids to a different room." And that was coordinated. And then electricity came back on and they were able to continue. But those kinds of facility issues are things that, as you know, are going to chalk up some expenses for us, and will be things that we're going to have to long-term look into in terms of repair. I don't have any similar concerns over at the Masthead campus. I haven't heard of those issues coming up there. The only one that we had was roofing. And as you all know, we paid a pretty penny to get that fixed, but the roofing should be solid for the next, I think, 25 years or something is what the warranty is. So Masthead's not dealing with the same kind of issues that Galton is when it comes to facilities. And we're hoping that we can really get a plan for long term. The only positive thing is for Thanksgiving break, a group of us dudes got together with chainsaws and flannel shirts and went and cut down some trees over at Masthead that were dead. And they took my Gentlemen Start Your Flannels email seriously, and we all showed up in flannels and mesh hats and chainsaws, and we had a good time. It took us 4 hours, but we were able to get 6 trees down and cut up and hauled off from the campuses. And we will be looking for, there are some policies around the Masthead campus in terms of what we will need to do, because they were in the front of the building. And so for the Journal Center area, we'll need to replant that, and we'll do some work for that in the spring and try to maybe get some donations from some local nurseries for some trees to plant in their place. But that was a good time that we had together. In terms of, so asynchronous days, to tag that onto the end, and then I'll jump to the PTO. For us, that meant the 2 days for Thanksgiving that were the first two, that Monday and Tuesday, we counted as asynchronous days, and teachers ran them accordingly, even though we weren't having classes on campus. We had a snow day that was an asynchronous day, and then the plumbing day, which was the asynchronous day. And that we are allowed for, as what was mentioned. And so the clarification on the policy, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Ms. Warner. I had asked Ms. Boatman, and she didn't get back to me until you and I had finished our 2:30 meeting, and she said I didn't get to ask Karen that one, because if it is the case that we have utilized all of our asynchronous days, then I wanted you all to know that we're there. And if we have another snow day or another day that closes the buildings down, that means we are coming back after Memorial Day, because we have no more wiggle room in the calendar. And our only other wiggle room would be to hold a live instructional day during Thanksgiving week, which we could have done, but we're past obviously that point now. So that would tag days on at the end of the calendar if we end up with more asynchronous days, if that's the policy.
Great.
So,
I'm going to pause you for a second. We have Aaron in the attendees.
Oh, sorry.
oh, my apologies. I
No worries.
missed that.
We can bring him into the panel.
I will not sleeping on the job, saying goodbye to my daughter over here. Sorry. Oh, and Felicia's in the panel out there too, if you want her to join us. However, do you want, I see Felicia. I assume it's Felicia Boatman, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, I do know that the way the NMAC 6.2.10.5.8 is written is that remote instruction may comprise no more than 4 instructional days or 32 hours per school year, or at least 50% of which must be synchronous remote instruction, except for hardships included in subsection I, or optional instruction programs, charter schools that have a contract to that effect, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't apply. So hardships in section I are severe acts of nature, snowstorm,
No doubt.
natural disasters, community or statewide health emergencies, the passing or prolonged illness of key school staff, or violent or other disruptive acts on school property that necessitate a lockdown or necessitate total or partial closure of a school. All of which I think the emergencies could be number 5. Disruptive acts, plumbing, kids can't go to the bathroom, we can't have heating, we can't have cooling, whatever that might be.
And you have
Anyway.
a biohazard in the school.
I think the destructive act caused the clogging.
So there's that. So it says, but subsection I says, due to hardship, the secretary may waive on a case-by-case basis the length of instructional days and the number of instructional days with students, provided that school year is adjusted to ensure the students receive a minimum of 1,140 instructional hours per school year. So I asked if we need a waiver if we want to exceed the 4 days or 32 hours, if it's used for like snowstorms or other emergencies. And do I interpret correctly that we can use it on snow days and that a waiver is only needed if schools want to actually remove days or hours from the calendar? They forwarded, I sent it to the help desk, they forwarded it, took a while. The policy department said they would like for waivers to be requested. You would like for waivers to be requested, or they are required to be requested? Haven't quite gotten an answer to that. But so I do think there's a mechanism by which we can request, hey, we had this happen, we did this, the emergencies particularly, but even the snow days, and not have it.
What was the NMAC rule number that you were citing? I'm sorry.
No problem. You didn't catch that. 6.10.5.8. And in reading the NMAC, it's kind of jumping around. Is it section G that talks about remote instruction that says you can't have more than 4 except for hardships or other things that don't apply. It doesn't say you need a waiver, but when you go up to hardships, it says that the secretary may waive but I would argue that the way the NMAC reads is that, and I think it's legitimate, the way it's worded, you are only allowed 4 instructional days of remote learning unless you're a remote school or some other special circumstance like that, except for hardships. And the hardships are listed in subsection I, but it doesn't say that we need to have a waiver. That's how I interpret it. So I think and I can share if you want to see it, but I think in summary, my non-attorney legal interpretation is that you are not allowed to plan for more than 4 instructional days per school year, except for hardships. And hardships include severe acts of nature and violent or other disruptive acts. I
Right,
think they're talking.
which is a rather broad statement. Disruptive acts, plumbing coming up or sewage coming up through the deck drains and the walls, I would constitute that as disruptive, right? And a health concern. So
I don't know
now,
why health, like statewide health emergency is listed, but this isn't a community or statewide health emergency.
right,
But
right.
I don't
That's a
think
reference back to COVID.
I don't think their hardships are very good, actually,
Right.
because the way violent or other disruptive acts committed on school property wasn't committed, well, that necessitate a lockdown or necessitate total or partial closure of a school. It's clear to me that this act of plumbing problem required the school to be
Agreed.
partially or totally closed. So
Agreed.
I don't know that it's actually what they meant there, but again, section G, remote instruction, doesn't say that the hardships require a waiver. Section I says if you have a hardship, you can have it waived for these reasons.
So we
Anyway,
happen to have a legal lawyer on the board, and I believe that if the language in a contract or any regulation is vague, it is the burden is on the author, not on us to determine what it meant. So if we interpreted it as such and we acted as such and they don't like it, then they have the burden to fix it. Am I correct, Heather? Is that correct?
So I think you are. I'm just reading through the rule right now and I haven't gotten all the way through section I. But I think it would be reasonable, like you have done already, Karen, is just ask for clarification.
Right.
Just to make sure that we are following what the intent of the rule is.
Right.
but in summary, I would prefer not to ask for a waiver and just interpret it the way I interpret it, of course.
Correct.
Yeah, sure,
But
sure.
if we're required to ask for a waiver, then that is an option. So we're not completely out of options, I guess is where I'm at this point. And I don't necessarily know that the person who responded to me is the one who gets to decide. And perhaps it needs to be forwarded to general counsel at PED because I think it needs a better look than the person at the help desk who forwarded it around and got me an answer.
I agree. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say we can move forward and hope, of course, that we don't need those any more extra days, that we don't have any other problems. But moving forward again, I think it would be wise to ask for a clarification for the following year for planning purposes.
And I will
Or
say
even for
that,
moving forward this year. Yeah.
I'll say that typically where we have in the past seen this happen at this time of year is, the February snowstorm we tend to get somewhere kind of January, late January, February, where we end up with one of those days. And the other potential that we have had to do in the past is when the heating system goes out. And it happened last year where the heating system went out to coincide with, like, the high for that day was like 21 degrees or something. It was a cold front that had come in, and which of course is why it overstrained the heater and the boiler room. So we have obviously an HVAC person that now works for the school that has been actively tackling those kinds of things and working on the transition from, as you know, to the heating system. But I'm imagining that there is a possibility that we would have to plead the case should we need a fifth day. And so I will just also put out there, we need to maybe consider what documentation, if anything, we would need to produce should we have to go backwards and say we had a day asynchronous because of plumbing. The K5 still maintained its classroom structure, but the 612 had to close. Obviously, most of that was done via phone call. And unfortunately, the email system we use, which is the school messenger system, does not retain the message for me. So if I'm not a recipient, it does not have an archive of the messages that I've sent, because I've often had to go back to something and I reach out to staff parents to say, can you forward me the message that was sent through school messenger? So I've got a record of that in my inbox. So I will do that on my end for both of those, both the snow day and that. But if there's anything else that any of you recommend we do to document the days we have already had to go, because the 2 for Thanksgiving, there's nothing we could plea there. That was a gesture to be nice to staff. So
That's a,
nothing there to
Right.
defend. But the snow
Right.
day and the plumbing day, I think, is worth it for
So,
us to document.
so 2 things. One is the verbiage is planned asynchronous days. If it's planned and we get 4 planned, disasters, snow days, all of that are not planned. Those are unplanned events. Now, and I don't have the language up right now, but if there's no mention on how to handle unplanned days, then it falls, again, my interpretation, under subsection I, right? Snow day is not a planned event. Plumbing coming up short and flooding the school, unplanned event. So 4 planned events. So if 2 of those were unplanned, then we probably still have 2 planned event open. But I think if we document everything carefully, the who, what, when, where, why, how, recovery, so that if we ever get challenged or we need to put in for a waiver or whatever, and if we do need to put in, is there language in the NMAC that explains exactly what needs to be contained in said request?
I
no.
did
Or does
link
it
the
just
NMAC
say
rule in the
you
chat,
need
by the
to
way.
ask for it?
There
I'm
is a waiver request form available
Okay.
through PED that I assume there's a long list of waiver requests for various topics. I have
Okay.
not checked, Chair Molina, but I assume there'd be one. It would be there.
Okay. All right. Very good. I think we're
And I
groovy.
can look into what is required.
Mr. Colander, you asked
But
about
I
other
guess
documents. Sorry, Karen.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say you had asked about other documents, and I think it'd be an easy matter to look up a weather report for a specific day, and that wouldn't be hard to show any proof of that. I'm assuming that you have copies of receipts for the plumber and the work that they did, and I think that would be proof as well that the work was done and that it was done in a specific location and a biohazard and necessary to close the school.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Great
Wholeheartedly.
idea. Let me drop a note to Ms. Lovato to say, send me copies, like PDF copies of the invoices that they will have submitted.
So Karen, maybe a question a little off target, but you said the secretary has to approve this. Does that mean that all public schools have to go through that process, or just charter schools? Because it doesn't sound like we have to go through the PEC.
No, the Secretary of Education.
Right.
So that's the state Secretary of Education.
Right.
And that NMAC applies to all public schools.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Are all public schools following it? Not sure. Are some having more than 4 days of remote learning and we don't know about it? Probably. I would prefer not to because CSD gets wind of it and then we're also in trouble there. We have an
Correct.
added layer of accountability, right?
Correct.
Um,
Yeah,
but
CSD.
I'm looking on the website and I of the waiver request forms, and I'm actually not seeing one specifically for this purpose. There is an instructional hours one that I'm going to look at more carefully, but I don't think we're asking to waive instructional hours because I think we're still so more to be done on this. To Ms.
Yeah.
Anderson's
Sure.
point, I will continue. I guess I'm just happy that I had started the question inquiry.
Yep.
And I think we need to continue to move forward with that and get a solid like, okay, when, where, and how,
Yep.
and actually get somebody with more authority. And by that I mean probably the general counsel's office or the secretary's office to actually give us a response, because I think this is rather vague right now, and it's
Mhm.
not clear to me.
Agreed.
Not super clear. I could argue that I think it's pretty clear that when we can use 4 days of remote, except for hardships, we've had hardships, those don't count.
Sure.
I would make that argument certainly, but it's worth pursuing and getting solid answers.
Yeah.
And then how do I submit this? How do you, we would prefer I recommend a request. Okay, where, when, and how? Because I don't see a place to do so.
Yeah.
Sure. And
So-
it's and some of those things are on my radar because we did receive our site visit information that will be joined February 10th and 11th for hours from the PD, which is early this year from what I'm used to. When they normally come, we're normally kind of last. We end up usually in April, May. But this one is in February, so the turnaround time is quick, and it just happens to coincide with our little charter school showing up on an agenda for a PEC meeting. I believe it's this Friday that that we are on the agenda with some questions that I saw Ms. Werner has reached out. I don't know if you got a reply to that yet, but she had reached out for clarification on what we were expected to produce by I think by the 20th was the request for some items there. So I'm trying to ensure that whatever eyes are going to be on us, they seem to be on us already. And I just want to make sure that if there's something coming up that we can anticipate there being a potential concern about, that we're being extra careful with our documentation right now as well.
Yeah, agreed.
The last item for me on here was PTO, and I think it was a good conversation, and it started in a place that I love starting with when I do meetings with the principals from the different campuses, where I sort of say, do we all share the same definitions of something? And it was we had met with our PTO president because there's been some back and forth with the school and the PTO and just some challenges therein. Some of it has to do with personality conflicts, just like anybody would have in a public setting. Some of the challenges are coming from volunteers. They're volunteering their time and their effort, and it's harder to sort of push on volunteers than others because it's an easy task for them to bail out of things. But ultimately, Nikki Nance, our PTO president, asked the question. I think it was a good one, which is, what exactly do you see, like in your mind, what is the PTO's function at a school? Which I think was a good question, and I don't know. It's always healthy to go back to the why once in a while, and the what and the execution of it, because our school is, some of the challenges that we're faced with is, I wouldn't really say are just challenges. They were just things we didn't anticipate. So being that we have a new administrative team at the K-5 campus, they of course are wanting to do activities and events with parents that were not things planned for and budgeted for back when they had their budgeting meeting back in June. And so they've asked for some money coming forward. Sometimes the response is positive. Sometimes it's like, well, we didn't budget for that particular event that you're trying to plan for, or that activity. And I can understand why the PTO is often at odds, in the sense that they want to support parents and doing active things with parents. They want to have some transparency and some guardrails around what goes on at the school. But ultimately, there have been some things in the last couple of months that have felt like the administrative teams on the site and the PTO as an organization are not seeing eye to eye, and we sort of had to address that with the team. And so I share it with you only because it was a good topic of conversation, but it's a thing that's impacting both campuses. The Masthead campus is being impacted by they are putting forward a lot of requests for some activities, which I actually think is a good thing. But in doing so, they sort of they're asking for money that was not pre-budgeted for those activities because they are sort of like, hey, what if we did similar to what Ms. Odine shared today? It was sort of like, let's do this activity, and is there a way we can get support from this? And so I think moving forward, we need to maybe rethink how that works, how the fundraising works for the school. We did get all the P card paperwork. Brittany got that submitted today, so that should be finalized and moving forward soon. I know that was something that the board was ensuring that we sort of really dot our I's and cross our T's on making sure that that's done correctly. So I do know that signed paperwork was turned in today for Ms. Lovato to get that moving forward as well. And it should help with some of the things that have created some controversy for PTO. There is one of those that I will just say, I think this was one of those moments where the school and the PTO were not on the same page, because I think some of you attended or came or dropped by our fall festival. And I wanted to be transparent with the fact that the administrative team, myself included, were not fans of charging parents a $2 fee for a wristband to be able to enter to the fall festival. We felt that that should be free and open to anyone who wants to come to the school. They shouldn't have to pay to get on to the school grounds. I know that PTO did it for a reason. It wasn't just needless. They thought that sometimes when the coffers run low, it'd be nice to have an additional way to generate a few dollars, and charging a $2 entry fee for people to come into the fall festival was a way to help pad that. But in speaking with Mr. Helkema this week on Monday, what it did not result in was actually more money for PTO or the school, because the turnout was smaller and it was fewer funds raised at this year's fall festival than previous fall festivals, which if you were there, you probably noticed the traffic lines were not as big, the crowds were not as large. It felt from just the bird's eye view like it was a smaller event than we had seen in the past. And of course it was. So it didn't quite work out the way they wanted, but that was something where there was some back and forth with PTO, and they eventually just said, we're doing it our way. And they did it. It wasn't very successful, and that feedback was shared with the president today, that we felt that was not the right move. And I'm hoping moving forward we don't continue to do that. Those things, to me, should be free for people to go to. But that's it. That is all the good, the bad, and the ugly happening on the campuses. I hope that January and February are going to roll around, and we're going to be starting to talk budget for next year. And I think we're similarly on the same page, that I think we're looking at, we have got a teacher pool that looks good right now. Conversations might trend towards term 1 and 2. You might see larger classes than you are used to, so things can level out, but not trying to hire in anticipation of more students, but getting the students and hiring as a response thereof, as an alternative approach for next year. But all that's coming up in the next few months.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Colander, fellow board members?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And let me just take a moment to welcome Aaron. Thank you so much for jumping out of a flight and right onto this meeting. Really appreciate that dedication. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
And I apologize that you might have been waiting a while.
Well, I was just waiting for a break in the conversation, and I was gonna chat, but I was like, oh no, everyone seemed to be in the zone. So
But my apologies. I was a little bit down on the job.
Well, we were in the zone, which includes Karen, because we had dropped a question, and I think that put her into research the NMAC rule mode, which is where the attention went. But it was actually helpful to keep the conversation moving forward.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Hamilton, for jumping in. This is awesome. We're on to section 7, item B, which are general updates and reminders, board training requirements. I went to one Saturday, 2 hours, got that one done. I think I have one more to do, and I have my 12 hours to cover the 8 that I need, because I didn't get them all at the conference because I was presenting. So anyway, although I did get credit for the hours that I presented. So I have like 3 hours in some areas where you only need 1, but I'll take what I got. So Karen, I believe this is your section, if you'd like to drive here.
No, just my monthly reminder of board training requirements. I think most of you are either done or close to done. We have, of course, this is, I guess, my reminder for Aaron every month until he finds time to get it done. So, but he's got time. I just hate to I'd like to keep it in your face. Charter school conferences, if you didn't already know, there is a conference being held by the Public Charter School. Oh, that's PCSNM. Public Charter Schools of New Mexico, which I think we've talked about before, is a chamber-like organization for charter schools. The cost to be a member is $15 per child per year, so it is not cheap. We are not members, but they do put on a conference every year. It has a fee associated with it. It happens to be tomorrow and Thursday and Friday. Not sure if anyone was interested, and I neglected to mention it before and figured I better put it on here today. But even without that, there is the conference in the spring, which we are familiar with. It is free. Well, free comes from your 2% money that we pay for being a charter school. But the Charter Schools Division puts it on. It's going to be at the Embassy Suites. I know the call for presenters is out on the website. I made a link on the agenda to the website for both of those conferences if you want to check them out. But if you do have time and availability on June 10th and 11th, I'd save the date. You can often get training for that could maybe even be applied to next school year.
Yes.
And I know that some folks here may want to make a presentation. Chair Molina, maybe Mr. Colander, but if you're interested in presenting, they're asking for submissions of your presentation or idea by January 10th. And either way, save the date and try to go to those if you can. I will definitely attend the June. I don't ask the school to pay for me to go to the PCSNM one. Save the date. I had to report the graduation date to the PED or to the Charter Schools Division, so I thought I should put it on the calendar for you all. If you're interested in attending the graduation in the spring, you may as well mark your calendar now, because Mr. Colander provided that date, May 23rd at 10 a.m. Two things that aren't on there that came up while we've been talking is the site visit on February 10th and 11th. And I didn't have the date or didn't remember to note it here, but of course we can talk in January again. Remember, part of that may include board member focus group. So we'll need some board members for that February 10th and 11th. So next month we'll talk more about that. And regarding the meeting on Friday for the Public Education Commission, yes, Mr. Colander, I did get a response from Bridget. In fact, I got it at 11:05 this morning, but been a little buried today. But it basically says that the discussion that lists Explore Academy is so backing up. They listed Explore Academy under a discussion item, not any action to be taken. But I reached out and said, normally they don't list a school without telling us why. Anyway, the item is a discussion of what amendments may be required to our charter contract in order for our contract to align with the updated versions that they've been working on of the performance framework and the business rules that were adopted last November. So we got on the contract for July 1st, yes, a new contract, but they have made tweaks and revisions as they've implemented it, which is not unusual. And they may be asking us to amend or they will maybe force us. I don't know how this all works, but changes were minor and are summarized in the attached document. I will send that out to you all. There will be no decision on Friday. I will be listening in to the PEC meeting, but it's just a discussion of what kinds of things would need to be adjusted. And there's a list of schools, and that list of schools are the ones who renewed this year. So they are on this new contract. It isn't really picking on this time. It isn't picking on Explore Academy, but rather the fact that we were renewed this year and are on the new contract that they've now made changes to. And they really want to keep people on the same version. There are some additional tweaks I think they need to make in terms of their performance framework and the business rules, because I don't think that what they intended to evaluate is really what they're evaluating in the end. But so there may be more revisions in the future, but that's what that's about on Friday. So we don't need to appear, and it's only a discussion, not an action item. So I did get that word out from officially. And then lastly, I did make a link to our board policies. No actions required today. There's a lot of policies there, but I really would like us to, some of them were adopted when the school was first applied Some have happened at renewals. Some changes have happened here and there along the way. I'd really like to get a review of our policies and approval, whether we do a few at a time or whatever we want to do. But I added the link on the agenda for you to start plugging away at those. Thought I would send out maybe a spreadsheet with a list of them all, and you could check off or make notes if you had changes you wanted or something. But I really think we need to do some review, and I need to know when they were last approved. And right now, that's not been tracked very well.
Mm,
And I'm trying to improve that. So
okay.
um, that's what that board policies is about, is that I would like for you all to start reviewing that, what I would call the board policy manual, but it's just a bunch of files in a folder by topic. And um, will help, some of them are short, some of them are long. Most are just based on statute requirements or statute regulation or PEC requirements. um, and many happen because we are required to have them, or because we had an issue come up and it wasn't clear. So rather than having to go refer to statute all the time, we've implemented a policy that summarizes the statute, and there we have it. So I would like to continue to tweak those as we need to, but I would like approval on them ultimately
Okay.
in some schedule. And so, Chair Molina, if you kind of work with me on how to do that going forward, but board members, if you would bookmark that board policies and start taking a look at some of them, or maybe those that are of particular interest, so that we can discuss in the future and approve and have a formal approval um, on the books, if you will.
Okay, very good. Yes, thank you very much. It sounds like some of those, what was once an evergreen document needs to be pruned and otherwise fed and watered. So, all right, very good.
And
Especially if
I
they're,
think
I was gonna say, especially if they're tied to statute, if any of those statutes have changed, which I'm pretty sure they don't change a whole lot, but we need to make sure that those are parallel and not cross-threaded. So that makes a ton of sense.
yeah, and so most of that I try to stay on top of, like we had background check changes that happened. I also have some volunteer stuff that's changed that we haven't implemented yet, but I need to get that in there and then implement it. But I would prefer to know that these at least have all been approved,
Right.
and then track when I, make a copy and track changes if I have proposed changes moving forward. Otherwise, it's been kind of a little less than how organized I would like it, is all I'll say.
Okay. Yep.
I'm
Fair
working
enough.
on
Fair
it.
enough. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's probably overdue, but this is a great time to get started and underway. So yes, please reach out and I can have a visit on how we want to proceed and then bring those ideas to the board.
Yeah,
All right.
super.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Karen. Any questions, comments, board, before we move on to section 8? All right. Section 8 includes the transportation contract revisions. I think we need to bring Lisa into the mix. There
Mm-hmm.
she is. And then a quick visit about financial internal control policies. So Lisa, welcome aboard.
Good evening, Chair Molina and members of the board. I'm going to keep it short and sweet tonight because what I have for transportation is usually longer than this. However, we just had our 80-day reporting, which includes transportation reporting. Transportation reporting happens on the 80th and the 120th day count. When we received all the mileage reports from Herrera Bus Company, we realized that they were using some buses that were not on our contract. So we wanted our contract to match. So I'm going to share my screen. Do I have the ability? Yes, I do. So there was 5 buses. Can you all see my screen? Perfect. There was 5 buses here that is noted in red of what bus is no longer being used. There's no change to anything else other than 1191 is now being S56. 1196 is now 1201. 1192 is S57. 1174 is 1153, and 1171 has replaced 1177. So these are what mileage was reported on, which I have to enter in for our 80-day reporting, which then goes to the state. So we did want our contracts to match what was going to the state for mileage reporting. And as a catch-22, it also needed to happen because we had some spare buses on there that could only be used till the end of December. So now they are actually going to be the ones used moving forward as well. So now the contract reflects the buses that Herrera is using. They are all spare buses while we are still waiting for our buses to be coming in, but those spares could also be only used until the end of December. So With your approval, we'd like the contract to be approved so that we can submit it with our 80-day reporting to the state, just noting that we did switch some buses around, but that is what we are showing mileage for. So it all matches.
Also, if I may just add, Lisa, those changes are all spare, what they call spare buses. In other words, they're not buses, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but they're not buses owned specifically by the school or purchased through the school's bus acquisition approval process. So they're spare buses. In some cases, we're waiting on replacement buses to come in. But in some of those buses, they are old enough that they were going to have to be pulled from service on December 31st of this year. It's kind of good news that I guess that the bus company already pulled them and replaced them. But the bottom line is we need to replace I need to fix the contract with the new numbers, at least for January 1st going forward, regardless of this mileage report. So I do just want an approval of the revised contract, knowing that all that's being changed are buses and therefore bus numbers, all of which are spare buses at this point. Is that right, Lisa, or am I wrong?
No, that is correct. It was spare buses for spare buses. So Herrera just ended up using different spare buses that they put on the contract. So when they reported the mileage, it was different than what was on the contract. And we wanted our I's dotted and our T's crossed. So we wanted the contract to be amended with what we reported for mileage. And then in turn, it was ones that had to be changed anyways because they were out of service at the end of December. There's a lifespan of buses and they were out of service, so we had to change the contract as of January 1st anyways.
Right. So the ask is for the board to approve the revision to this contract, noting that the only change really are buses and numbers.
For
and they're all
5
spares.
buses, and they're all spares for spares. So if there's any questions, I will go ahead and take those questions, but that's all that I have for you, and then a motion.
All right, well, let me move to approve the amendments to our current bus contract with Herrera Coaches to take effect no later than January 1, 2025. If I may have a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Any questions, comments, concerns, or clarification needed? Fellow board members? Seems pretty cut and dried to me. So, very good. Well then, if there is no further discussion, Ms. Dottie, would you please conduct a roll call vote to approve the amendments and changes to the transportation contract with Herrera Coaches to go into effect on or before January 1st, 2025?
Yes, sir. Chair Patrick Molina,
Aye.
Vice Chair Martha Barrera,
Aye.
Heather Anderson. Heather,
Aye.
thank you.
Sorry, forgot about the mute button.
And Aaron Hamilton.
Aye.
And Dottie McKinney, aye.
Very good. There you go, Miss Lisa.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks, you
And before
too.
before Lisa goes, can I just acknowledge that her work in this transportation area, we already know she does a lot with the bus referrals and all this organizing of Herrera. But I do want to just note that the MOU that you all approved has led to Herrera doing some bus evacuation drills that I've never heard of being done before. So thank you, Lisa, and thank you, board, for that MOU that reminded them that they have certain responsibilities to make sure kids are safe, and some of which they may not have been doing. I'm not saying they weren't, but they might not have been. And it's brought some attention to that. So thank you, Lisa.
Excellent.
You're welcome. And I appreciate the partnership and collaboration with everybody on the screen here.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks a ton, Lisa. All right, item B in section 8 is financial internal control policies.
And I spoke to Chair Molina about this. Did you want me to speak to this a little bit,
Yes,
Chair?
please. Yes, please.
So, you may know that whenever we have several explore models, I go to several board meetings every month, and when somebody has a suggested change, I like to bring it to the other boards. That happens often here that I bring to others, so you don't see it very often the other way around. But in this instance, this was something that the Las Cruces brought board asked for, and I thought it was an Axiom, our school business official request. As it turns out, it was a Las Cruces board request. I'm not sure you want to consider it. I'm not recommending it, but I am sharing with you that the Las Cruces board has revised their internal control policy to have a higher threshold that requires board approval for certain expenses. Um, and in summary, there is a link on your agenda I captured the specific sections of the policy and noted in green what the proposed changes were. I think you can see that. But in summary, it's requiring a $5,000 check to be just approved by the head administrator, and up to $25,000 must be approved by the head administrator and the board chair or designee. Prior to that, it was 5,000 needed both, I believe. In any case, that is what Las Cruces did. You are welcome to consider it or not consider it, or tell me this was crazy, why'd you even bring it? But that's what it is. And again, I don't have a recommendation one way or another, although I think unless it's burdensome on the board, I would probably, if you have asked for a staff recommendation, I would recommend not changing anything. But this started because I wasn't really paying attention to the details. I just wanted to share what another school had considered.
My take on it is I think in the 2 years, 2+ years that I've been sitting in this position on the board, I think I've had one request. Most of our large expenditures are planned and customary, like P&M, our water bill, all of those are much larger than 5 grand. Those don't require a signature. These are for probably, at least in past organizations, including Sandia Labs, for capital purchases that are large. Typically, it always goes through the board, and that in and of itself is an approval to pay the bill. So I think once in 2.5-ish years, I've had to sign a check. So I'm not sure this is necessary. If somebody else disagrees, we can certainly have that conversation. But if there were a lot of these requests coming through and it was slowing down our organizational speed, then absolutely. But I don't, like I said, we're humming along, and we could certainly do this, but I'm not sure what the benefit would be. And I like those big expenditures coming through the finance committee anyway, so that everybody's involved. And when we approve it as a board, it's ipso facto approved, and this requirement goes away. So, thoughts?
Looking at the bullet points, I feel like the second bullet point, like I'm fine with that change. That makes sense. The payroll, I guess bullet point number 1 and 4, I tend to agree with you, Chair Molina, that I mean, unless we're getting a lot of volume of checks above 5,000, then yeah, maybe, because it's becoming burdensome. But if it's not a burden on you, you've only signed one since serving, like I would say let's keep the threshold as low as possible. Or not too low, but at the 5K mark. And then on bullet point number 5, let me make sure I count right. Yeah, the very last one. I guess that this is fine. We have software with this ability. I guess it's more of a question.
Sorry, mute button. We do our approvals through, I believe, Chairman, even when you're asked, it's through the software, right? So I think this was an add-on. I think this actually, I'm glad you actually read this, Mr. Hamilton. I think this add-on was added by Axiom just to clarify. I think it's already kind of covered, but it specifically talked about email approval, and that's not how we're doing it. We're doing it through a login and third-party software.
Okay.
And so they just wanted to be clear that that was acceptable and deep valid. So I guess to your point, if nothing else, this one, let me change my recommendation and say that this is, I would strongly recommend this one. The others I have
Yeah.
no real skin in
I
the
like
game.
that. If that's how we're doing it, then
Yeah.
let's put it in the policy.
Sure. And it is how we're doing it. It's all electronic signatures through a vetted third-party app that everybody gets to see what's going on. It's pretty slick. It's really slick. DocuSign? Is it DocuSign? I forget which one it is, but it's of
I
that
thought it
kind.
was through the, I thought it was, well, they may do it that way too, but I thought it was through some mineral tree software or I
Yeah,
don't know
it's one of those. Yeah, it just depends on which
what they
document you
need done.
send.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to comment, if I may, on bullet 2. And I think, Mr. Hamilton, I'm trying to represent what I think I heard from you, which is that we don't need to change bullets 1 and 4. And that's why I crossed them out. Is that correct? Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, we'll just keep it the same, that same
Right,
level. We don't need to add a
right.
25,000 threshold.
Okay.
I guess
And
in
in bullet,
5 years when inflation and 25,000 is the new 5,000,
Right. Then
then
we can
we'll
right.
bump. Yeah.
And for bullet 2, I just want to point out that uh, all expenditures must be approved regardless of the amount by the head administrator. The, and then it used to say that the head administrator or CPO will review purchases to assure that the purchase follows the requirements of the New Mexico State Procurement Code. In all honesty, Jake, I have no idea what you know or don't know about the procurement code, so I'm not being, I don't mean to be implying that you don't know it. Maybe you do, but it's not your job. It really is that's why you have a
It
CPO,
is a
right?
CPO. That's correct.
So I do like the change in language for section 3A, the second bullet,
Yeah.
because it is the CPO's job to review and make sure purchases follow the procurement code, although expenditures do need to be approved by the head administrator. So
Right.
I do like the revision there on that one.
Okay.
And so I guess, here I am changing my recommendation a third time. Third's the charm. I would recommend bullets 2 and 4 and the others at your wish.
Yeah.
That's my,
Um, I would make one change to bullet number 2, and that is to
sure.
replace the period with a comma, so it's not $10, but $10,000.
Oh, yeah. And my old eyes didn't
Because
catch
that
that
would be
much.
really, really, really burdensome if we had to go after
Yeah, Brittany would kill
expenditures
me.
greater than $10. So, um, yeah, I have no beef with that. Actually, what we should have done is put a motion forth and then
Oops.
voted to not go with it. But I'm glad we didn't because we had a discussion. So I move to approve the proposed revisions to our financial internal control procedures, sections 3.A.V, section 8.F.I-II. A second?
I can second.
Wonderful. Any further questions, comments, concerns, fellow board members that we just had? Yeah, I think those are all fair and reasonable. So very good. Very good. All right. Then, Miss Dottie, would you please conduct a roll call vote to approve the revisions to our financial internal control procedures regarding sections 3.A.V and section 8.F.I-II?
Yes, sir. Chair Patrick Molina,
Aye.
Vice Chair Martha Barrera,
Aye.
Heather Anderson,
Aye.
Aaron Hamilton.
Aye.
And Dottie McKinney, aye.
All right. Motion passes. Very good. Thank you all. Great conversation. Fantastic conversation. That's why I'm glad Aaron's here because he's got that kind of auditor eye. So thank you so much, Aaron. Moving on to section 9, board comments. Fellow board members, any comments you'd like to make? Very good. Hopefully you're seeing the wolf pup. Karen's putting that out. Looks like about every other week. Really neat. Really neat. I'm so glad you're doing that. So thank you so very much for sending that out. Really appreciate it. And my only other
Mm.
comment is to thank each and every one of you for your continued dedication and service on this board. It really does make a difference. So those are all of my comments. Anybody else?
Happy holidays to you all.
Amen. Yes. Happy holidays all the way through, because the next time we'll see each other is the second week in January. So yes, happy holidays to all of you. Excellent. And we have public comment. We still have Felicia in our attendees, but I'm not sure when we needed to or should have brought her into the panel.
Yeah, so if Miss Felicia or Felice, however you pronounce your name, Felicia, if you would like to make a public comment, please raise your digital hand or feel free to type your name in the chat and we can promote you to the panel for a public comment.
Okay, she says she can't seem to unmute, just listening. Thank you so much for just listening. Glad you are here, and I hope you found this educational, if not entertaining. Wonderful. Having said that, I will adjourn this meeting at 6:56 p.m. Our next meeting is Tuesday, January 14th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Again, thank you all for your continued dedication and service. It is an honor and a pleasure and a privilege to serve on this board with each and every one of you. And I wish you and your family a wonderful and warm holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Good
Bye.
night. Good night, Dottie.
Good night, Karen. I think I caught your cold. Just sitting here, I'm starting to feel like, and blowing my nose.
Well, I'm glad we weren't meeting in person because then I'd feel guilty, but there's a lot going around. I know a lot of people that have it. So,
Yeah,
in fact, I've
sitting here, it's like my throat's getting sore.
I'm sorry,
Oh, no, don't worry. No worries. I'm just glad
but
you're.
I have been wearing a mask out because even though I feel better, I keep coughing and I'm like, don't want to cough particularly, even if you try to cover or whatever. But I've been wearing a mask just so I don't infect people, right? One of the things I didn't used to do, I mean, always covered my mouth, but and wash my hands. Since
Yeah,
COVID, we're more conscious of like protecting other people a little bit, you know? So
absolutely.
anyway, but
All
are
right.
you doing okay?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I have my oldest granddaughter has just been a challenge. And her son that I co-signed his apartment. He got accepted at LSU and left for Baton Rouge in September, and I co-signed for his apartment. Well, he couldn't keep up a full-time job to pay rent and do classes and homework. So he was failing 2 classes and he decided to drop out the 1st of November, and he's now applied at NMSU. He's going to be transferring in January. And that meant breaking the lease. And it cost me $4,000 today to break the lease that I co-signed for. And I'm like, Merry Christmas, everybody. Jonathan gets to move. I mean, I've never co-signed for anybody for anything. And I just knew that this wouldn't happen. He was so reassuring. And it's been a tough lesson for both of us, believe me. So yeah, that's what I'm dealing with.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too. And Tamara, the granddaughter, she and her boyfriend broke up a couple weeks ago. So she's moving into an apartment, and Jordan's still having doctor appointments. So she spends almost every other weekend with me, 2-3 days. And it's always a flurry of, washing sheets and towels and cleaning the bathroom up after him. I'm just like up to here with my grandkids right now. I love them to death. Don't misunderstand me, but boy,
I know.
yeah,
No, I always say I think I always joke about, I mean, not really joke, but that, I want to have grandchildren, right? But then when you hear these stories, I'm like, I got enough with just the kids.
Was that, which daughter was that came in and hugged you?
That was Brianna.
Beautiful. What a
Yeah,
beautiful.
she was here to pick up some stuff from us that she wants to borrow. She's been planning this pirate themed party for Saturday night, and um she came to borrow. We have an anchor and a wheel thing
Oh,
and
how fun.
treasure chest, and she also wanted to borrow crock pots, and I don't really see her much unless she needs something, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, it's nice
She
not
li
to worry about her, huh?
she lives with her boyfriend and she's doing very well. But yeah, and I told her she wanted to come by and pick that up on her way home from work today, and um, I said, well, I'll be in this meeting. And then she came in, she's talking in the background here. She said, can I give you a hug? And I'm
No,
like, yeah, I don't care if they see me hug you. It's okay, come here.
not at all.
But yeah, so she was here visiting with Lauren for a bit while I was at the meeting. So um Lauren's here staying with us for a bit.
Okey doke. Well, I
So
hope
yeah,
you feel better soon. And are you still going to Florida or you
I
went?
went. I
Oh,
went.
you did go.
We were there for 2 weeks. We came back on Friday.
Mhm.
Um, 2 weeks and a day, I think it was. So we were actually there, but my husband and I were both working from there. So we were there, but we were working remotely, and but it was wonderful. It was really
Oh,
nice,
yeah,
and
because
I
when you're not
really
working, you're near the,
right, and just the change of scenery and environment, and there's nothing to do there. I mean, nothing that I have to do there. Like,
Mhm.
there's not these household things or projects that need to be done or something. So there was no pressure around that. And then ocean therapy was just phenomenal. The only thing I miss living here is ocean.
Mhm.
So we had a condo, I think I told you, right, with um, it's across the street from the beach. So it's not right on the beach, but there's another condo in front of you, but you can see the ocean. You can see the ocean. There's a balcony and you can hear it. I didn't expect to be able to hear it, but I could hear the ocean from the balcony. So that was just every morning, get out and just sit out there with my coffee was phenomenal. And then um, working there was great. And then at the end of the day, we sat down on the beach a few times and watched the sunset. And it just
Mhm.
was really, really nice. It
Very
was kind of
healing.
cold. It was kind of cold for there, like it was in the 60s part most of the days, but some days were in the 70s. And I didn't care because I'm not like wanting to go in the water or anything. I just like to be by the ocean.
Yeah.
So Lauren came out for Thanksgiving. We were there, so she came out for 5 days or something. But so she was with us for Thanksgiving, and we went to a restaurant on the beach, and we literally had a table that was at the end outside on like there's the beach.
Oh, wow.
It was
Nice.
nice. Yeah. So I
And
enjoyed that.
yeah, and you didn't have to cook, so that makes it
Or-
doubly nice.
Yeah, I don't mind, and I like to have people come. We have a small family, so I like to have them come. But um, it was nice to just. I didn't want to cook at the condo
Mhm.
that I don't know what they have, and yeah, so.
Yeah.
But it was very nice, and they have a washer dryer in there, and they have um, it had 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. The
Mhm.
one bedroom's really tiny, has a full bed in it, and but it has its own bathroom, good sized bathroom, and then the master bedroom bathroom. So it was really quite nice, and
It
a nice
sounds
big living area and a patio. Yeah, it
uh,
was. It was. I will be going back
good.
for sure.
Soon, probably, huh? You hope.
Well, we talked about, and I don't know because I'm going on a cruise in April to Alaska,
Oh, boy. Wonderful.
and I'm going in October, Portugal,
Oh my gosh, Karen.
because my Up With People cast is having a mini reunion in Portugal in
Oh,
October. So we're
oh,
gonna go.
oh, wonderful. That's wonderful.
And I also have my high school reunion is having would that be 45th? Could that be? I didn't want to talk about the year I graduated, but um yeah, it was 1980 that I graduated from high school. So, um, 1980. So it's 45 years in 2025, and they're having a reunion in September. So I'm thinking I have to check the dates, but um, I might be gone a while in September and October.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. You deserve it. Good Lord, with all you do to keep up with all of the schools. It's just, I don't know how you
Well,
do
right
it.
now I'm a little drowning, but I was really proud of myself tonight, Dottie, because the things that Jake raised as possible concerns, I'd already started looking into, right? Like
Mhm.
the days, I didn't know, but the remote days and the meeting on Friday, like I'd already taken steps to stay ahead of that or try to get answers on those things. So I was proud of my, I didn't have the answers, but I was still proud of myself that
Yeah,
I'd already taken care of the things that came up, sort of, more or less, you know. So,
good for you.
but I'm tired and sometimes I just look around here like I don't even know what's the highest priority right now.
Oh,
And sometimes I get down a track that it needs to get done, but oh, but wait a minute, this I started keeping a notepad here that I just keep writing things as they pop in my head
mhm.
because it's gotten so much that I don't have a good tracking system of, and it's sort of every day things happen, and so I'm having to reassess what what I
But
thought was priority now is not, you know, like anyway,
yeah, that's
it's
a
just
lot.
too much, too much, too
I was
much.
gonna say, any hopes of an assistant down the line again? That's a lot.
I don't know. I just feel like somehow I mustn't be managing it all very well because I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now. But it's just that there's so many things, and every single meeting I go to, there's follow up and to dos. And I
Mhm.
spent an hour and a half today with Jake and the PTO president. Anyway, he kind of talked about that, but I mean, it's amazing the stuff that crosses my desk, Dottie. Like,
Oh, yeah, that's crazy, crazy,
like
crazy.
um, I never know. Every day is different. Like I start my day and I have these things I'm gonna prioritize. I put little stars next to, and I'm lucky if I get to those because undoubtedly there's they need help with potential expulsion or they had parents come show up at a school. This is in Nevada, but parents show up at a school um, wanting to see this the 13-year-old kid, mom and big brothers of this little girl who want to handle the justice with this 13-year-old boy that I'm not even sure what he did except called the girl a name. Anyway, you never
Mm.
know what they're going to call me about and say, what do I do? I'm like, call the police.
Yeah. Oh my
Anyway,
gosh, Karen, you are spread way too thin. It sounds
yeah, a little bit, but
way,
it's I like the job, but sometimes I get a little harried. And then
yeah.
being sick. So last Thursday, I was going to take the day off for Dennis and I to just do something fun for the day. We were both taking the day off, vacation day, and we were flying home on Friday. And I got sick, and I was so sick. We just hung out at the condo, and he even went down to the beach, and I didn't go with him.
Oh,
That was the day I was really sick. And then Friday, I was sick traveling back, which was horrible.
oh my
But I was
God.
mostly dehydrated, which made me nauseous, which made me anyway. So, but so on top of that, then I'm behind by 2 days, right?
Hmm.
Because normally I was that sick that I didn't, on Friday, we were traveling and I didn't bother even looking at emails or chat messages. I figured if it's really that urgent, they'll call me. Um, which is unusual for me. Even when I'm sick, I'm at least checking what's going on
Mhm.
and make sure I stay on top of stuff so I'm not drowning. But by not doing that, then I'm drowning. So
Oh gosh.
anyway, but I don't mean to be complaining because I really do enjoy it and I love all of you. I love this board. I also have problems with some of my other boards, so that doesn't help either.
Well, I hope we make up for it to be, you
Hmm.
know, knowing that
Love
this
you all.
meeting will go well, hopefully, and
Well, and I know that like, you know, ultimately it's the board's decision and the head administrator's decision, but I like to provide good information and,
Mhm.
you know, but after that, I don't really care. This is ultimately your decision, right? So,
Yeah.
but not everybody takes my help in the same way, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they feel threatened. I don't know what the issue is, Dottie, but I just try and help. So
All right, my dear. Well, I'm gonna let you go. So I'm gonna go
you take care of you. Get some rest and
get my jammies on, and
yeah,
yeah,
me too. I'm gonna
it's
go
nice
do that too.
nice to talk to you, my dear.
Yeah, I would love to try to get together maybe as through this
Maybe
next
between Christmas
chaos.
and New Year's after, after the holiday.
That would be awesome.
It would be awesome. I would dearly love that.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, dear. Take
I
care.